Hello everyone, this is Elaine A. Powers, welcoming you to another Reptile-side chat. March has been Tortoise Month, and so last week you met the Sonoran Desert Tortoise, but today I thought I would share with you some of the other tortoises that share my domicile with me, more of my reptile housemates. So you remember my Sonoran Desert Tortoise from last week. Scientific name is Gophoris moravkai, and they live here in the Sonoran Desert. I live in Tucson, Arizona. And the Sonoran Desert extends from Southern California, Arizona, down into northern Mexico and Baja California. And this is, as you can see, a tortoise. He has the strong, stubby legs with the fingernails for digging through the hard dirt, and really solid built shell. This is the carapace, the plastrons underneath. And these little segments you see on the carapace are called scutes. And you'll learn an interesting note about those scutes later. But this is the Sonoran Desert Tortoise that you will see here in the Sonoran Desert. Unfortunately, there is a second desert tortoise that you will also find here in the Sonoran Desert. So excuse me for a moment while I exchange tortoises. All right. Now, this tortoise is very popular in the pet trade, and hopefully she'll come out. And she is a sulcata or an African Spurred Tortoise. They're also called spur-thigh. And you can see by the bumps and the spurs on her front legs, these are used for digging into the hard desert soil. Now these are sold as pets. As baby tortoises, they're a perfect size to have as a pet, but they grow very, very large. And she probably weighs 40, 50 pounds, and she's probably only 10 years old. I have another male Sulcata tortoise who weighs 160 pounds. So I won't be picking him up to show you. But these are very, very large tortoises that dig very, very well with those spurs on their front legs. And the problem is you keep them in, if you keep them inside, they will easily dig through the drywall of your walls. So that makes them very unpopular. Here in the Sonoran Desert, you can keep them outside. The desert here is actually very similar to their native desert. These tortoises are from Saharan Africa. So the countries that have the Sahara Desert have these tortoises. Okay, so the scientific name for the sulcata is Centrochellus sulcata. They are the third largest tortoise in the world, behind the Galapagos and the Aldabra. And my male will probably reach over 200 pounds. So unless you want a really big tortoise and can care for them properly, you probably don't want to get that baby sulcata. And I know it's a problem because you go to the reptile shows and you see these cute little tortoises and people buy them and not realizing how big they are. Well, then they take them out to the desert and let them loose. Now, unfortunately, these tortoises do very, very well in the Sonoran Desert, and they have become an invasive species. So you saw how big the Sonoran Desert Tortoise was. She is full grown. This tortoise is still a teenager and is still growing. So you can figure out in a fight who's going to win. It's not going to be the tiny little Sonoran Desert Tortoise. These tortoises are really good at digging. And so you have to make sure if you have them in your yard that you have a wall that goes down off. They do actually can dig under the walls and get out. So you might want to microchip your tortoise so that you can track them down if they get out of the yard. They're very good at bulldozing. If they want to walk through something, they'll just bulldoze right through it. Like I said, including walls, furniture. These are the 2 desert tortoises. Don't mind, I'm going to put him down a moment. Put her down. They are vegetarians, pretty much grass eaters. They'll eat the cacti and the native plants. And this Sulcata tortoise, actually, I remember told you last week about the den I had made for my Sonoran Desert Tortoise. Well, this tortoise found a much better place to make a den. And so she dug down underneath a bush and actually kept digging, and huge amount of dirt came out of this hole. Kind of made me a little concerned about just where she was digging to. But she made such a nice hole that the Sonoran Desert Tortoise wanted to move in too. And so the Sulcata made the den big enough for both of them, and they actually did share it. Now, the Sulcata cannot remain outside. They cannot brumate outside like the Sonoran Desert Tortoise could. So she's inside waiting for spring to come where I can put her back outside and let her dig her own den again. Now, these dens that they dig are good for keeping warm in the winter, but also because of the Sahara Desert, it keeps them cool. They'll dig down to where there's some humidity in the soil, and they will estivate. So you brumate in cold weather, and you estivate in warm weather. So that means they just kind of hang out, slow down the metabolism until the temperatures are comfortable again. So those are the 2 desert tortoises that I have in my house. Now, most of the tortoises in my house are of a different kind, because you might be thinking, well, of course, all tortoises live in deserts, right? Well, not all tortoises do. They actually live in many ecosystems around the world. And the ones that I have most of are red-footed tortoises, which are actually tropical rainforest tortoises. All right, so hang on. All right. So this is a red-footed tortoise, and you might be able to see if we can see, and you can see why they're called red feet, because they actually have red spots on their legs, and some of them have red spots on their heads as well. So they're actually a very attractive tortoise. They're nice because they're a nice medium size. They don't grow too big like the Sulcatas, and you're allowed to keep them as pets, unlike the protected Sonoran Desert Tortoises. So these are also very popular in the pet trade. They live in northern South America and the Caribbean islands. So in a future talk, when I tell you about my green iguanas, they'll be up in the trees and these tortoises will be roaming around beneath them. Their scientific name is Chelonidus carbonarius. And unlike the desert tortoises, these tortoises are omnivores, which means that they will eat both plant and animal matter. They pretty much will eat anything tasty they can find. So they're a little more interesting to feed as far as in my household. I do give them a variety of vegetables and fruits, and every now and then just a little meat, because they're not going to be chasing down any deer or anything, but they will scavenge carrion and eat dead things that they find. Now, all of these tortoises will live in the 40 to 50 year range. So you have to make sure that you plan, if you have them as pets, on who will take care of them in your will. And as I mentioned last week, if you look, you can see, once again, all tortoises have black eyes. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the differences between turtles and tortoises, and you can see why the black eye is one of the characteristics of a tortoise. Now, you remember I mentioned those scutes, and you can look at her scutes. All tortoises have the same number of scutes on their carapace, no matter what species they are. That is a characteristic of tortoises that has come down through evolution. They all have the same numbers. And they all grow them the same way. I don't know if you can see, but there seem to be little rings in the scutes, almost like tree rings. And that's how the tortoise shell gets bigger. They actually put in more keratin, more protein in between the scutes to force them outward and allow the tortoise to grow bigger. So this is, I have the most of these in my household. They like high humidity and rain, which is why most of the time they're indoors where it's a little more humid than it is outside in the desert. The other guys like it nice and hot and dry. And these tortoises, unlike the Sonoran Desert Tortoise, will actually drink out of a bowl. I recall last week I told you that the Sonoran Desert Tortoise likes her water to fall from the sky. They all lay eggs, which we don't allow here in the Powers household. So I control the breeding of them. And as you can see, most of my tortoises are females, which works out really well. All right, so these tortoises are found in the savannah, which are grasslands, as well as forest edges. And they're very personable tortoise. Tortoises do have personalities. They all don't make any noise other than the redfoots are what they call noisy breathers. They actually will kind of whisper. So one of the problems I have at night is all the redfoots gather underneath my bed and start whispering to each other. I guess going over the day's events or what they're planning to do tomorrow. So I hope you've enjoyed meeting some of my my housemates, the tortoises. We've got the pretty red-foot tortoise with his red feet. And it looks like my Sonoran tortoise has made a break for it and run off. So we'll have my sulcata say farewell for this week's episode of Reptile-side Chat. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to message me. Check out my websites at ElaineAPowers.com and lyricpower.net, where we have lots of worksheets and fun workbooks that go along with the tortoises and the turtles. You might see some similar information that you got today. And don't forget to sign up for my newsletter so you can find out what exciting activities we have. And if, when we're allowed to meet together, you'd like me to come in person and bring some of my reptile family members, I'm also delighted to do that. Thank you all, and see you next week for Turtles versus Tortoises. Bye.